Hello, everyone. Today I want to do something a little different for my pray. I want to walk through the book of Ecclesiastes, and there is um, so much. I think there's so much wisdom and truth and application for the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, the book of Ecclesiastes is it was written by King Solomon. King Solomon, of course, is the son of King David, and Solomon was kind of known for having it all. Like he was king, which number one was cool, but he had everything. I mean, the amount of wealth that he had. If you dive into it, in First and Second Kings, like if you read an account about his wealth, or do a Google search, like you will see he was a very wealthy guy. And he not only had wealth, but he also asked God for wisdom. He was considered by many to be, one of the wisest men in history. And so, he wrote Proverbs, and so, like, this Ecclesiastes, this is kind of like the end of his reign. Towards the end of his reign, like, um this is Solomon kind of summing up, if you will, in 12 chapters, kind of just like everything he has learned, his conclusions throughout his life experiences, his um just the wisdom that he wants to, like a final word type of deal. And so I just kind of want to walk through some of this. I highlighted a bunch of stuff in this book. Some of the stuff is so relevant, and some of the stuff, these words jumped off the pages at me. And so I want to talk about some of the stuff because I think it's very relatable to our lives today. Um, in fact, one part in here, I'm not going to spoil it. I'll get to it, but it's early on in chapter 1 that I think is just so funny. And so with that, I'm just going to jump right into the book of Ecclesiastes. I don't know if I'll get through all my notes in all 12 chapters, but yeah, I want to dive into this, and I want to see where the Holy Spirit leads. I pray that the Holy Spirit would open your heart, your mind, your thoughts to this podcast, and just let him speak to you through this. So with that, I love how Ecclesiastes starts. Verse 2, Solomon says this: everything is meaningless. And if you're listening to this, you're like, well, what? Like, that's how you're going to start off a book in the Bible? Everything is meaningless? This is a guy who's got, wisdom beyond wisdom. And this is the first thing he's going to tell us, is that everything is meaningless. Now, he goes on to describe, if you're following along in Ecclesiastes, right? The first, was it 3 chapters? Not 3. Actually, I think in every single chapter in Ecclesiastes, he says everything is meaningless. So he's really trying to get this point across that no matter how much you accumulate through this life, whether that's knowledge, whether that's material possessions, whether that's fame, fortune, like, these things do not come close to knowing Jesus, to having a right relationship with God. In other words, if God is not why you are living your life, who you are living your life for, all of these things then become meaningless. That's what Solomon's trying to get across. In verse 8, he says, everything is wearisome beyond description. No matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are not content. And this is the part I was alluding to a couple minutes ago, that is very funny, but also very applicable to our lives. It says in verse 9, history merely repeats itself. It has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Sometimes people say, here is something new, but actually it is old. Nothing is ever truly new. We don't remember what happened in the past, and in the future generations, no one will remember what we are doing now. And so I find that both interesting, comical, and uh, it's redundant because it's true. History does constantly repeat itself. And not to put this on a global scale, I want to make it more personal. If you think back to um, a point in your life where you did something or said something and a certain outcome happened, I'm willing to bet that you could fast forward and think to another point in time in your life that the very similar, if not almost the exact situation happens. And you may say, well, Adam, that's just coincidence. I think that that's God at work. I think that Solomon has a point here. Like history does repeat itself. It does. We could take this on a much deeper rabbit trail and talk about, things that have happened in the world, plague, famine, the government. I mean, we could uncover a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to get into that because that's not my focus of this podcast. But I just find it funny that he starts off with making this statement that history repeats itself. So Solomon obviously has done a bit of research himself, and he understands this principle that history is constantly repeating itself. He wrote this book after he had tried everything and achieved everything, only to find that nothing apart from God truly made him happy. And Solomon's goal was to show us that earthly possessions and accomplishments are ultimately meaningless. Only the pursuit of God brings real satisfaction. And so we should honor God in all that we say, in all that we do. If you look further down in chapter 1, verse 18, I highlighted this part. It said, "The greater my wisdom, the greater my grief. To increase knowledge, only to increase sorrow." In other words, the more you understand, the greater your pain and difficulty. For example, the more you know, the more imperfection you see around you. The more you observe, the more evil becomes evident. I'll stop right there. I'm going to say this probably a lot in this podcast, but that's so true, right? The more knowledge you have about any particular thing, the greater the chance that you see the imperfections in that thing, in that relationship, in that job, in that situation, right? And then the more the more you see around you, the more you observe, the more evil becomes evident. That was the bigger one. In our world today, I've had this conversation with so many people over the last year about just how aware, and I'm going to call it an awareness because I think that's really what it is, especially if you are a follower, a follower of Jesus Christ, that you have God's Spirit inside you. You are aware. There is an awakening. There is an awareness going on in the world today that you are not oblivious to the things that are happening. You're not oblivious to injustice. You're not oblivious to corruption. You're not oblivious to, watching people around you struggle and like you can see that stuff tangibly. We can see it. We understand it. We're aware of it. And we're aware of it because we have God's Spirit inside of us. But, like it said, the more you observe, the more you are aware of these things. And I think that's a call to responsibility. In other words, the more that you observe, the more that you're aware that evil is prevalent and around you, is also a call to responsibility that we have as believers to try to do something about it. And that looks different, right? Spectrum across the board, that looks different for everybody of what those parameters are, what you can do, how you can help someone. I mean, maybe it's as simple as calling a neighbor or a friend or a family member and just saying, hey, I'm here for you. I know you're going through a hard time. I know that you just got fired, or you're going through this lawsuit right now, or you're on financially hard times, or you're going through a sickness or an illness. How can I be there for you? How can I pray for you? Like, these are tangible things that we can do, to help those around us. So I like the way that, Solomon says this, but then it further goes on to say, uh, as you set out to find the meaning of life, you must be ready to feel more, think more, question more, hurt more, and do more. In other words, are you ready to pay the price for freedom? So again, the more you know, the more responsibility that comes with it. It's kind of like well, no, that doesn't fit. Never mind. I was going to say the old Spider-Man adage, with responsibility or with great power comes great responsibility. That doesn't fit here. But anyway, I digress. Verse 9. So I became greater than all who had lived in Jerusalem before me, and my wisdom never failed me. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. I found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labors. But as I looked, everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so meaningless. So again, Solomon here is now using that word again, meaningless, like he is accounting of all the things that he had done. He would take whatever he wanted. He had whatever he wanted, even for all of his labors. He said he took great pleasure in hard work. I know a lot of us can identify with that. I know a bunch of people, who are workaholics. I am not myself, not afraid of hard work. That was something I learned as a child from my grandparents. They instilled that in me, just of working hard, and it's never left. Um, Adam, the other one of our other contributors and founder of Big Sky Testify, workaholic. Guy is a workaholic, and so, like, I know he would agree with me on this. Like, it's what are we chasing it for? I think there's a healthy balance between working hard, but then working hard for more. I've always held to this kind of principle that no, whatever I do, I'm going to do my very best. I'm going to give it my all, and I'm going to do it unto the Lord, right? But sometimes we add a fourth one to that, and we do it for more. We do it for the Lord, but we do it for more. We do it for more money, for more prestige, for more acknowledgement, for more accumulation. Like, that can be a very slippery road. And I say this because I know a lot of people struggle with that. If you are a person that is a workaholic, or if you are pursuing work to the detriment of you enjoying life, to you spending time with your family, your wife, your kids, to not being able to enjoy the things and gifts that God has given you in this life, then that can become a problem. And so we have to have a good balance. I don't think there's anything wrong with working hard, but what are we working hard for? Is it legacy? Is it, something to pass on to your children? Because again, if you want to pass stuff on to your children, and we're going to get into a little bit more of um, I'll get into that here in a second. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's definitely an asterisk next to that as well. Um, in chapter 2, it's comparing the wise and the foolish. Verse 13, it says, I thought wisdom is better than foolishness, just as light is better than darkness. For the wise can see where they are going, but fools walk in the dark. Yet I saw that the wise and the foolish share the same fate. Both will die. So I said to myself, since I will end up the same as the fool, what's the value of all my wisdom? This too is also meaningless. Now he goes beyond that throughout the rest of the book, where he talks about, so the wise and the foolish, contrasting the two, both are going to end up dead, returned to the dust, right? He does the same contrast later on with the wealthy and the poor. Same deal. That the wealthy and the poor both die the same, return to the dust, right? So, what do we get for all of our work? What is the efforts of constantly chasing the dollar, if you will? And I'm gonna say that because what is the point of work? Right? When whatever you do, whatever your career is, whatever your passion is, it's maybe not the case in every example, but for the big part it is. And I can attest to this because if you've been following my story for a little bit, I had surgery on my arm back in the end of May. I've been off of work for 3 months. I go back to work on Monday, thank God. But in all that time of being off, I can tell you, while I had physical limitations, it was also a very mental struggle. It was a spiritual struggle. It's been sitting home and not working is sometimes harder than you would think it would be. When we go on vacations and stuff, yeah, we enjoy it, we soak it in. But when you have 3 months off, and this is the first time in my life that I've ever had 3 months off, probably since I was 14 years old, when I didn't have a job. So I'm not accustomed to being kind of laid up. And yes, I was recovering from a surgery, right? But at the same time, like, doing things that I used to do was difficult. Getting my strength back has been a challenge. Like, being able to, getting ready to go back to work on Monday, while it's both exciting, it also makes me really like pump the brakes and really take stock here of exactly what he's talking about. In chapter 2, verse 22, it says this: "So what do people get in this life for all their hard work and anxiety? Their days of labor are filled with pain and grief, and at night their minds cannot rest. It is all so meaningless." I can tell you this: before I went on, or before I had my surgery, I worked at one of the shops that I worked at. I'm an electrician, and one of the shops that I worked at for almost my whole career. Been there 10, 11, 12 years. I don't know. Loyal, faithful, worked hard. But I can tell you that, like it says in 22, what do people get in this life for all their hard work and anxiety? I came home. There's so many days where I came home just stressed out, full of anxiety, full of worry, full of stress. And yeah, there were times at night where I couldn't rest. I was just so worked up about the day. And I was putting myself through all that for so long for a paycheck. And that's it. And I have recently quit that job. I'm starting a new job on Monday. And I've had time to reflect about that the last couple of weeks, especially since I quit. And the crazy thing is, in this world, I'm going to be completely transparent, guys. In this world, we are all just a number. And that's the sad truth, is that you are replaceable. And I don't say that to tear you down, to make it seem like you don't have value in your work, because you do. If you are a hard worker, if you do everything unto the Lord, like you have value in what you offer, whatever company you work for, if you're self-employed, like there is value in that. What I'm saying is that in corporate America, you are just a number. And I was hoping I was wrong, but my experience of quitting my job proved that. My boss was super nice. He was understanding. He didn't give me any guff about quitting. He completely understand why I was doing it. But not, a couple days later he basically told me that they had kind of already found my replacement. So my point is I was stressing about all that for what? I was putting myself all through that for what? To be replaced, right? And so all that to say, do you know the real reason why you're working so hard? What is the real reason? I had to ask myself that question. Like, I was killing myself at this job, putting my best foot forward. I was running circles around people. I always would go the extra mile. I would, I had a standard for how I would conduct myself in a work setting. A lot of people didn't share that. A lot of people were under that, and that's neither here nor there. I'm not judging them for that. That's just that work ethic that I have instilled in me, that I mentioned earlier, that I got from my grandparents. Like, just was to put, to work hard and to be a person of integrity and to be honest and to that work ethic I got. And not everybody has that. And you know what? That's, again, neither here nor there. That's not what I'm getting at. But what do you put yourself through that for? It's, and we can justify it too. Like, there are times where I was like, well, you know, I'm doing it for my family. Okay. There's nothing wrong providing for your family, especially as men, fathers, husbands, we're supposed to do that. But to what extent? Are you putting yourself to the grind so much that you don't see your kids? And I did that for a while. I had 2 jobs. I was working full time at the electrical shop I was at, and I was a part-time worship director. Like, I was putting in a lot of hours during the week, and I couldn't see it at first. I was blinded to it. And I thought, well, I'm doing ministry. Like, this is a good thing. And but what I was really doing was taking time away from my wife and from my kids. And so I took a step back from that. And and even today, it's a struggle. Like, I still, I'm playing music again and I'm saying yes to things again, but there's not a day that goes by in my head that I don't have that thought. What am I taking time away from? And so all that to say, guys, is like, what's the real reason you're working so hard? We need to be attentive to that. In chapter 3 of Ecclesiastes, is probably one of the most famous chapters or passages of Ecclesiastes. A lot of times it's read at funerals. The time for everything, time to be born, time to die, time to plant, time to harvest, and so on and so forth. It goes through about 8 or 9 verses of that. And verse 11, it says, "Yet God made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart. But even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end." When I read verse 11, that he planted eternity in the human heart, I had to stop there, because it was confirmation to what I have been saying, that this means that we can never be completely satisfied with earthly pleasures and pursuits, because we're created in God's image. And so to be complete, we have a spiritual thirst. We have a spiritual thirst for God. We have an eternal value, and nothing but the eternal God can truly satisfy us. So again, like, what are we chasing after? What are we, and I struggle with this. The deeper I get into Ecclesiastes, the more I'm struggling with this type of balance, because in the last year, I will say the last year and a half, God has blessed me and my family in ways that I never thought would happen. Summarized version, like, we were able to we moved in about almost to the date a year ago, and we were able to build a new house. That was not something I ever thought that I would be able to do. And we didn't, like, for those of you who are listening to this, like, the house that we lived in for 10 years was a real small fixer-upper. And we took it month by month, year by year, and we fixed it up when we had the means, and we started to raise our family there, but we were growing out of space really quickly. And so we were able to do this, and it still blows my mind that we were able to do that. And what's even crazier about that is we didn't even build the biggest house. We just built the new house. We didn't build the biggest model. And I can't help when I look around, at where I live now and in my neighbors, and I've seen this, is, like, it could become that rat race, right? Like, who's got the bigger house, who's got the best truck in the driveway, who's got the best looking lawn, I don't care about that. I don't care about how my lawn looks at all. Meaning that I don't get caught up in the rat race of that. But like, you can easily get siphoned into that funnel of comparison, right? Of who's got what, how did you get this, how much do you have, yada, yada, yada. And honestly, I'm just blessed to be here. My family and I are blessed to be in this house and where we live. And the rest of it, I don't try to get caught up in because it doesn't matter to me. But the more that we're going through Ecclesiastes, I'm sorry, the deeper we get into Ecclesiastes, like the more this stuff starts to become apparent to me about chasing things and what that looks like. In verse 15, it says, what is happening now? What is happening now has happened before and will happen in the future. And what happened in the future has happened before because God makes the same things happen over and over again. So now Solomon is starting to get into the meaning of life. He's starting to kind of get into more, what does that look like? And he starts to impart these verses on us that we can then take stock of and compare to, well, where do I measure up to this? Not in a conceited way, but to help you take stock of how you're living your life. Because the further we get on into Ecclesiastes, one of the main points that it starts veering towards is, in spite of all this, and no matter how much wealth, how much you accumulate, like, one, where is your relationship with God? Two, what did you do with the stuff that you had? And three, you can't take it with you. Like, these are the points that Solomon really kind of pushes here in the second half of Ecclesiastes. And so these are things that we can take stock of to in our own lives, right? I want to jump to chapter 5, verse 7. The importance of fearing God, right? The beginning of it talks about don't make promises to God that you don't intend to keep. But in verse 7, it says this: talk is cheap, like daydreams and other useless activities. Fear God instead. Verse 10, those who love money will never have enough. I highlighted that because, again, in light of everything I just said about, like kind of where God's taken us this past year, I don't ever want to be a person who's chasing money. Yes, money is a tool. Yes, we need money to survive, but I don't ever want to be controlled by money. I want God to be my foundation. I want him to be the thing that I depend on, not money. And none of that has been more apparent than this summer of being off of work, not having my full income. And God's been showing me that through that process is like he is the person that I will depend on, not my paychecks. And verse 15, like, this is what I mentioned earlier. Like, we all come to the end of our lives as naked and empty-handed on the day that we were born. We can't take our riches with us. It's that rat race of life. Like, we get caught up in it, even if we don't mean to. I mean, there's what's it called? The keeping up with the Joneses. Like, oh, my neighbor has this and he's got that and that. It's just like, we should not care about those things. But yet I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that I haven't had seasons in my life or thoughts or moments when I do. There are times all the time when I get wrapped up in that. Like, oh, I want this. Oh, I need this. I want that. And I think a lot of that stems from growing up the way I did. I think a lot of it comes from, kind of growing up poor, when my parents divorced when I was young and just like, particularly through my high school years, just didn't have anything. I never got to do anything. There were so many limitations on me as a person. And, so I started to regard this, this notion of getting what you can while you can, um, as maybe a little more important than I should have. And so, yeah, there was a time when I was pursuing those things, but then I spent my money as fast as I made it when I was younger. When my wife met me, I was in debt. Not a not a great thing. But, you know, now I look at it more as, like, yes, I want to provide for my family. And, I think as parents, you always want to give your kids a better life that you never had or that you didn't have. And that's okay. But again, like, we need to keep that principle that God is our foundation in the center. Um, that's a very important thing. Chapter 5, verse 9, enjoy what you have rather than desiring what you don't have. Just let's everybody put a check mark in that box, because I think that we've all done that. We've all coveted things we don't have, wishing on things that we don't have. Uh, if you were to go into your Amazon cart right now, how many things are in there? Um, just dreaming about nice things. As he continues on to say, just dreaming about nice things is meaningless. It's like chasing the wind. You know, again, guys, those things don't matter. We tend to think that in this life we want to experience those nice things, and instead of realizing the things that we do have and how blessed we are, how far we have come, how far God has taken us, right? That we long for things that we don't have. And I think that's a daily struggle. I think if we're all honest with ourselves, that's something that we all uh struggle with. And so how do we combat that? I think it's, again, being, you know, fearing God, obeying him, trying to live in tune and in step with what he calls us to do. I think another one of them is, taking an attitude and a heart posture of humility, not thinking ourselves better than anybody else. And just everything that we get, all of our resources, all the blessings that God has given to us, all the gifts that he has lavishly given us, like, that we think of them as blessings, that we thank him for those blessings. And we leave it at that, and we live in the moment, and we enjoy those things, and we don't constantly seek after more and more and more. I think that's very dangerous. I mean, the Bible talks about money so much, particularly in the Gospels, because, like, it can easily get a hold of your heart. And I will admit right here and now, like, this new job I'm starting, it does pay a lot more than my previous job, but it also gives me a lot of more opportunities that I would never have had in my old job. Opportunities to, uh, just in my field of study, just in being an electrician, right? Like, learning more, doing more things, having the opportunity to, like, just learn more about all the stuff that I've read in a book to get my license, things that I've never, tried before. And so, uh, but yes, does it come with an increased pay? Yes, it does. But that's, it also gives me an opportunity to meet new people, to share the love of God with people that I would never encounter if I had stayed where I was. And so you got to, looking at it from a different standpoint, like, I don't want it to be about the money. The extra money or the extra income that I will be receiving from the new job, like, that's just a side effect. It's a bonus of it. And I thank God for that. But, like, I'll have opportunities to meet people that I would have never been able to meet, possibly even reach for Jesus, had I stayed where I was. And so, but these are things that, as I'm reading and going through Ecclesiastes, like, God is showing me as well. Uh, Chapter 8, verse 5. Those who obey him will not be punished. Those who are wise will find a time and a way to do what is right. For there is a time and a way for everything, even when a person is in trouble. Wisdom is the ability to see life from God's perspective and then to know the best course of action to take. I love how it says that the wise will find a time and a way to do what is right. Another one of my pray topics that I'm still kind of flushing out, and probably gonna be my next one, is exactly that. It's kind of the us and our excuses, right? I have I told Adam in one of our conversations that I'm the king of excuses, right? I don't know about you, but like there's an old DC Talk song way back when that I used to listen to when I first started getting into music and drumming and stuff. And one of the lyrics in that song was, "I am the king of excuses. I have one for every selfish thing I do." And it speaks such volumes to me, because it's like I am that way. I am a selfish person, and I hate that about myself, and I work very hard daily, and I pray that constantly changes and it becomes less. But aside from selfishness, like, I have an excuse for everything. Maybe you are a person who can relate to that, or somebody who is, and uh no matter what happens, right? It could be something as it's raining outside. There's an excuse. You're late to a meeting. There's an excuse. There's always an excuse, right? But what do we do with our excuses? Because excuses can pile up, and so bringing it back to this verse, like finding a time and a way to do what is right. A lot of times doing what is right isn't easy. And so it's often easier to do what isn't right. It's easier to cut corners. And again, could apply that across a long supply run of topics and situations. I see it in the workplace all the time, people cutting corners. And it's just like, I love the way that that's phrased. Like, they'll find a time and a way to do what is right. For there is a time and a way for everything, even when you're in trouble. Like, it's easy to gloss over that stuff when we're in a bind, or we're in a situation where we don't know how we're going to get out of it, what we're going to do. There's still a time and a way to find. Oh, I'm sorry, a time to find a way to do what's right. Jumping forward a little bit, chapter 10. I love this chapter. It's subtitled "The Ironies of Life." In verse 10, it says, "Using a dull axe requires strength, so sharpen the blade. That's the value of wisdom. It'll help you succeed. Trying to do anything without the necessary skills or tools is like chopping wood with a dull axe. If your tool is dull, you should sharpen it to do a better job. Similarly, if you lack skills, you should sharpen them through training and practice. Sharpen the blade means to recognize where a problem exists, acquire or hone the skills or tools to do the job better, and then go out and do it." And I love what it says here at the end of this footnote for this verse is, what are the areas in your life where your axe is dull? And it got me thinking about, where's my axe dull? What areas do I need to sharpen my axe? And a lot of a lot of things came up. There's a lot of areas I need to sharpen my axe. I need to sharpen my axe in being a better husband. I need to, sharpen my axe in finding ways, new creative ways, and consistent ways of loving my wife the way she deserves to be loved. I need to sharpen my axe in being a more present father to my kids. I need to sharpen my axe and go down the list. Like, if I'm sure you could take stock. I hope you do too. What are areas that you can sharpen your axe? Because there's always things that we can do better. In fact, and I think that probably goes more to sharpen our axe and what are your priorities? Kind of tying it back in with this message of working. What are your priorities? Do you wait for the perfect opportunity to come around? Does everything have to be your way? Or are you okay with and even prefer letting God take control and leading you through those times instead? I've often said on here at Big Sky and in my life that I would rather be in God's perfect will for my life than have all the fame, fortune, and money in the world. Because I know the end game. I know the outcome. I know that living a life with Him is infinitely better than living a life without Him. And I think Solomon, and these last couple things that I want to share here at the end of Ecclesiastes kind of sums that up. In chapter 11, verse 9, he's talking about advice for the young and old. Young people, it's wonderful to be young. Enjoy every minute of it. Do everything you want to do. Take it all in. But remember that you must give an account to God of everything you do. When I first read that verse, I was like, Solomon, you are giving people a free pass here to do whatever they want to do. But he recalls at the end of it, you must give an account to God for everything you do. That verse, or that phrase rather, that you will give an account to God someday of everything you do, that has been a catalyst in my life. Usually it works. Sometimes I fail, but usually it works. And it has been a huge catalyst in my life for helping me to walk every single day and in step with God, with the Holy Spirit, and not succumb to temptations or sin or old habits, or because I could picture it. Can you picture it? Can you picture yourself standing, and can you picture yourself standing before God in the throne room of heaven, and everything, every moment, every word, every action, like going through with a fine-tooth comb, and you're going to have an answer. You're going to have to give an account, give an answer for everything you did, every hurtful word you said, every action you did that was selfish, that hurt somebody, every physical aggression, you're going to have to stand before the Creator and give an account of that. And while part of that is scary, right? There's a reverence and a fear of God in that. But I don't want to say it's hopeless, because we have an advocator, and that's Jesus. So yes, while everything we do in life, we cannot be perfect, and we cannot we can't live a perfect life. We're going to sin. We're going to fall short, but Jesus is our advocator in that. And with Him and through Him, we can confidently have an answer. And then lastly, the final conclusion that he has, chapter 12, verse 13, it says this. I'm sorry, I'm going to do 12 and 13. But my child, let me give you some further advice. Be careful, for writing books is endless, and much study wears you out. And that's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey His commands, for this is everyone's duty. God will judge us for everything we do, including every secret thing, whether good or bad. And I just want to, again, kind of going off of the same thing, like everything we do in secret. I don't know how many times where I have sinned and I've done it in secret. It's not in secret. God knows it's going to come out. So I want to encourage you, I want to encourage you in the midst of that, if you are somebody who is struggling if you're struggling with a particular sin, or you are struggling with an addiction, or you are struggling with um, a dilemma that is happening in secret that you don't think anyone knows about, that just you know about, I would encourage you to um, ask God for forgiveness for that thing. There's another thing in here I skipped. I want to try to find it because it's so good. It's about having, I glossed over it when I was turning pages, but it talked about, I can't find it, but it to sum it up, it basically said, take time while you still have it. In other words, we still have time. We can still come back to God. If you're somebody who's maybe hasn't been walking with God uh for a while, or maybe, you once were walking with God and you've, kind of been walking away from him, like, use the time that you still have. You still have time. It's not too late. In other words, it like he says at the end of this chapter, like, we are going to give an account for everything. It is not too late to come back to Jesus. If that is you, if that's something you've been putting off, if you think that you're too far gone, if you think that, that he could never forgive you if he knew what you did. Well, guess what? God does know what you've done. Um, and there is still time. We are living in the period of grace. We're still living in that period. So I would encourage you, if that's something you're struggling with, first and foremost, just confess it, repent, just tell God, look, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Jesus, please forgive me of my sins. Take this from me and help me to walk with you in the right way. And then secondly, I would encourage you, if that is something that uh, you are experiencing, to tell somebody. I have found in my life that sins that are left in the dark often flourish. When you shine a light on them, not so much. So have an accountability partner with somebody. If you struggle with addiction or drinking, or maybe gambling, or maybe if pornography, if like whatever it is, find somebody that you can talk to. Like, have an agreement that is set up between you and a person that you trust, where that could be your spouse, a friend, a family member, a pastor, just somebody that you trust, and that person can keep you accountable. Because I think it's so important, guys, that we have that person in our lives, because it not only motivates us to stay clear of those things that tempt us and that help and make us fall into sin, but it also, on that day when we give an accounting of our lives, that person, whoever that is in your life, uh, can make such a difference. So I would encourage you, those two things. Talk to God, let him know what's going on, speak it. I mean, he already knows what's going on, but to say it out loud, to speak those things, like, there's power in your words, right? So tell God, ask for his forgiveness and his mercy, which he freely gives to us each and every day. And then secondly, find somebody who can go through that with you, go through those storms with you, that can be that accountability person. Um, so I just want to, with that said, I want to pray as I end this. And my biggest prayer coming out of this book of Ecclesiastes is, this is 12 short chapters, guys, but there is so much knowledge and wisdom and just advice, really, from somebody who had it all, from King Solomon, who had all the wealth in the world, was wise, beyond his years. And he still wrote all this stuff down for your and my benefit. So if you get a chance, go through Ecclesiastes. It's a great book. And I think it'll really help you as you face some of these things. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you for the opportunity that you would speak to us through your word. Lord, I thank each and every person who is listening to this message. Lord, I pray that no matter what they are going through, Lord, that you would be with them, that you would help them, Lord, that you would be their advocate, Lord, that you would let them know that there is nothing that they have done that is too far to come back to you. Lord, that you love each and every one of us in such a unique and powerful and just mighty display that we can't fathom. Salvation is a gift. It's a free gift. We have to just accept it. It's hard to wrap our minds around just everything that you give to us, Lord, how good and gracious you are, Lord, that you desire to have relationship with us. And so you sent your son to live the life that we were supposed to live and die the death that we deserve to die. And Lord, that we would be able to have right relationship with you. So God, I thank you for the words in the book of Ecclesiastes, for the wisdom that's in there. God, I pray that as we study these things, Lord, as we take account of these topics and issues in our lives, Lord, that we would be able to apply them, Lord, that we would be able to understand them through you, Lord, and that you would help to guide us in the direction that we need to go to live with you fully, um, and that we would be able to experience your love and your grace and your mercy the way that you intended. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.